welcome into a special Wednesday episode of the Pain and Panic podcast. I'm Adam Sheets, joined by Chris Reynolds as always, and we have a very special guest to talk about the Ryder Cup golf aficionado, Amanda Vogt. Amanda, great to see you today. It's been a while since we've seen you,
Yes,
but
it has.
obviously Ryder Cup coming up, though. We had to bring you on because it's one of the best events in all of golf.
Oh yeah, I've been waiting for this all year. So I'm super excited that it's finally here.
Yeah, and Chris, as you said on our last episode, towards the end when we kind of hinted that we were doing this episode, you said you haven't followed golf as much. You're a golf guy, but hasn't been able to follow a lot this year. So you said you want to take the hosting duties today for this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna be asking for our guests who might not know, and also myself. I'm gonna ask. We have an expert now on the podcast. Adam, you know more than me. I used to keep up more with golf, and then now I just kind of watch Full Swing to just fill me in after the fact. But yeah. So this is one of the events that is interesting. Once every 2 years, this happens, and the United States has a lot of good golfers, but it seems like we don't really win this event that often, which is like. There's a lot of talent elsewhere in the world, but we still have very talented guys. So, USA versus Europe this year. I'm going to ask you guys a lot of questions. For example, what makes this event so great? Because obviously, patriotic America, but why is it better than, let's say, the President's Cup that just happened?
Amanda, you can take it.
Okay, I'll go first. I think it's better than the President's Cup just because the personalities that come from the European team, I think, are bigger and highly regarded a little bit more. Not to say that a lot of the greats from like Australia and Asia are not good. I just think there's something different when you see Rory McIlroy hyping up a crowd compared to Adam Scott. That's just my personal opinion. I just think there's more of a palpable feeling of a lot more on the line at a Ryder Cup compared to a President's Cup. I think it was a little bit different when it was in Canada last year. I think it was more hype around that, but it never draws the same international crowd that a Team Europe crowd would, even though it was technically an international host venue last year. But I think that between Rome last year and Bethpage now, it's one of the biggest anticipated events for a reason. I don't think the President's Cup is viewed the same way at all.
Yeah, I completely agree, Amanda. I think the one thing with the President's Cup is, like you mentioned, it's like the entire world that's not Europe versus America. So, like, when they do it in, like, Canada, well, like, Canada wants to root for the world, but it's like they've seen Scotty Scheffler and them play more than they've seen some of the guys on their own international team. Also, the Ryder Cup was the first. They used to do this against Britain, and then, of course, they've now opened it up to all of Europe, and they're kind of that bad blood. Europe invented golf, and, like, America's now kind of taken it over, as they've done with all sports, kind of monopolizing it, trying to really promote it and things like that. So I think there's some bad blood there from some of the old people. And, like you said, the personalities are better. You look at usually outside of maybe a couple players, the best players come from either Europe or America. So it makes it just for such great events. And you see some of the best players in the world go up against each other, which has been a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm with you. The Ryder Cup, it's just a whole different level. And when you listen to the players talk about it, they'll say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this event, obviously very fun, but what's kind of confusing every year that I have to relearn every 2 years is the format of how it works. So explain to me and our listeners, how does the team style work? I know there's different few events, but explain that and the points and everything.
You want me
You
to
can take
go?
it, Amanda.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
You're
so
the
there's-
expert.
So there's 3 different days. It starts on Friday, and Friday is 4-ball matches, and this is where partners really come into play on Friday and Saturday, and the pairings happen. And then on Sunday we have singles, which last year, well, in Rome in 2023, it wasn't that big of a deal because Europe was just dominating the whole way, so it kind of almost didn't matter once they got to Sunday because Europe ended up winning by 5 points. Whoever reaches more than 14 points wins. If there's a 14-14 tie, the previous winner would retain it. So that means it would be Europe. I don't know the last time it's ever happened, if it's happened. But 4-ball and foursomes sound similar, but they're different. I pulled it up just so I make sure I was even correct. So a 4-ball match, 2-man team, they play each other's own balls, so you're not like switching or anything. And then the lowest of the 2 scores will count. So if you and Adam are playing and Adam had the lower one, he'd take his score. But then the next hole, Chris, if you did better, they'd take yours. But in foursomes,
That
it's
probably would not be happening with me and Adam. It would probably be Adam's ball every time, but thank you, Amanda.
I was just trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. I
Thank
wasn't
you.
gonna say that maybe that's how I thought it would go. I just trying to give you a little edge maybe. But foursomes is different because you're only using one, and that's where alternate shot comes in. And when you have to be very strategic about who you're pairing people up with, there's a lot of strategy of who's gonna hit first off the tee and stuff like that. So I mean, for Team USA, some of the people are people who are on the President's Cup. And so they have that experience of knowing who might work well together. Whereas Europe, while their team is basically entirely returning from Rome, they haven't necessarily had that chance to test it, I guess, since Rome.
Yeah, so very interesting. And what I don't understand is we made this rundown of who's on each team, and it says that some people were automatically made, some were captain's picks. But
Yes.
explain who's on Team USA and how the selection process works for that.
It's through points. So I think the deadline for points was August 17th. And so it depends on how you do in certain tournaments on the PGA Tour, and for Europe DP World Tour. I think their qualification might be a little bit different, but obviously if you're winning a major championship, you're going to get more points for this. If you're winning at all, you're going to get more points. If you do top 10 in a major, you're going to get it. It rewards consistency. So some of the names of the automatic qualifiers for Team USA might not be like the biggest names you ever heard of. Like for the average person seeing Harris English and Russell Henley, that might not be like the most awe-striking name, but they played consistent throughout the whole year. That rewarded them automatic qualification. And then the captain's picks is where it gets interesting because Keegan Bradley was able to pick 6 people who didn't auto qualify, but he believed deserved to play. So there is a chance. I like that there's a mix because it's split evenly on how teams are rewarded. And it's the same thing with Europe. It's amount of points and it's just result dependent, how consistent you are throughout the year. And those major championships really do matter.
Adam, why don't you tell us now, break down the rosters for each team with like a quick, about each person in case we don't know.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start with Europe. Their auto picks, Rory McIlroy, I think everyone knows him. Finally won the Masters, got his career Grand Slam. He's the number 2 player in the world. Absolutely phenomenal. So he was their top qualifier through points. Bobby McIntyre, he had a phenomenal year. Almost won the U.S. Open, was right there sitting in the clubhouse with an opportunity to win it. But
Yep.
J.J. Spawn, who we'll get to later, ended up stealing that one. Tommy Fleetwood finally got a win, winning the FedEx Cup Championship. Had a great year, so many number 2 finishes for him. Just such a great season for him, so no surprise there. Justin Rose, who was the runner-up in the Masters this year in a playoff, he had a really, really good year as well. Kind of the veteran on Team Europe, so it's great to see him still make it as an automatic qualifier. Rasmus Højgaard, kind of like, when Amanda said with Russell Henley and Harris English, maybe a lot of casual golf fans won't know him, but he's had a really good year. One of those guys that's been very, very consistent. Not a guy who, has popped up in majors near the top of the leaderboards winning them, but a guy who's been really, really good for Europe. And then Tyrell Hatton, who's just so fun to watch. He's got a little bit of a temper, but it's fun to watch. I watched him freak out on hole 17 at the U.S. Open this year at Oakmont, so it was really funny to watch that after he just got a bad break in the bunker. So yeah, but he had a really, really good year as well, one of the best players in Europe. And then the captain's picks, as Amanda said, so the captains of the teams get to pick 6 players that they would like to be on the team that didn't automatically qualify. This is where you get like a Shane Lowry. A lot of people know Shane Lowry. He's a very great player, has been around for a long time. John Rahm, the live guys, it's really hard for them to qualify because they don't play in a lot of the events. So they really need to perform in the majors. And if they don't, they're going to have to rely on a captain's pick. That's how John Rahm gets in. Sepp Straka, another guy who's been around for a long time, Victor Hovland, Ludwig Oberg, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Again, names that a lot of casual fans know because they've been near the top of majors. Matt Fitzpatrick, of course, has won a major, and they're really ascending in the golf game. So that's the European team. It's really well-rounded. The depth of Europe is really, really strong right now,
It's
and
scary.
it shows. Yeah,
If you're
like
Team USA, that's scary.
Yeah, because
Well-
you look at it like America, Chris, before you hop in, they have Scotty Scheffler, who's the best player in the world and wins all these events. But when you go into a team aspect, it's the same thing. Tiger Woods really, his teams did not win a lot. He was by far the best player in the world, but the depth of Europe would really come into play in those events.
Well, let's get to Team USA and try to explain to me where that drop off, because you see Scotty at the top and you're like, all right, he's the best golfer in the world. And then you look at the other names, and most of these guys I know, so I feel better about. But so let's go to Team USA. Explain those guys, and then maybe where that depth might be lacking compared to Europe, for example.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty Scheffler, of course, number one player in the world, by far the most points. I don't know. I don't think he had the most points ever, but if he didn't, he was very, very close. He wins almost every event. J.J. Spaun was the number 2 qualifier for the U.S., won the U.S. Open. It really propelled him up there at a really good finish in the FedEx Cup as well, to really boost up his points. He's had a really, really good year. I think a lot of people go under the radar.
And at the Players' Championship, losing to Rory in a playoff, that was also a huge just tournament for him.
Yeah, like he's had a really, really good year. Kind of like a lot of casual golf fans may have not noticed. Like I even saw people after like when he won the U.S. Open, like J.J. Spaun. That's like, oh, he's actually had a really good year when you actually go back and look at what he's been able to do. If you only follow the majors, Xander Schauffele, everyone knows Xander. That's what she said, of course. I mean, everyone knows it from the movie. But no, he's one of the best players. I mean, obviously won 2 majors last year, and continued it into a solid year this year. A little bit down for him, for where he usually keeps his standard, but still a really good year, an obvious pick. Russell Henley and Harris English, this is who Amanda said, they've been really, really consistent, haven't been winning a lot of tournaments, but they play in a lot of them. They've been really, really good in competing, so they're the other 2. And then Bryson DeChambeau was the last automatic qualifier, another one of the live guys who got enough points through majors. He's phenomenal, obviously. Everyone really knows Bryson, not just the live
he's
stuff.
He's a YouTuber, right? That golfer, the one that does the YouTube?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
I see him on
was
the
that
TikTok.
Was that a serious question?
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I feel like the most Bryson content I see is him doing a trick shot on TikTok, and I'm just like,
yes.
Who would have thought? Like, imagine Tiger Woods in like the early zeros, just being like, "What's up, guys? I'm gonna hit a ping pong ball into this little cup here,
and someone's gonna win a Bentley."
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
really fun to watch. His stuff's really fun to watch, and the captain's pick. Yeah, like I think Europe everyone kind of knew who the captain's picks were going to be. There wasn't much, anticipation to see who they were going to pick. America, I mean, I was sitting on the edge of my seat watching every pick. Justin Thomas gets in, veteran, a guy I think most people thought was going to be on this team, had a really good year, a big bounce back year for him because he had struggled in the previous couple years. Really good year for him. Colin Morikawa, I think he deserves to be on the team. A lot of people questioned it. Amanda, I think did he switch caddies again this week going into this one, or?
I mean, like maybe at this rate, I don't know. Sometimes Chris, you can only keep track of so many things.
Yeah. Chris,
Colin Morikawa's caddy is not always one of them.
Yeah. He has a new one about every other week this year. It's been a lot of changes for Colin. They said he's kind of one of those guys that's a perfectionist, and it really shows. Ben Griffin had a really good finish to the year. He makes the team. Cam Young, another guy who had a great finish to the year, makes the team. Patrick Cantlay, I think, is a controversial one just because people don't really like him. He plays slow, but he's really, really good. He's one of the best players.
He's the guy that did not wear the Team USA hat last time, correct?
Yeah, and he probably won't again.
Yeah.
He never does.
Is that going to be a problem again, or is people expecting it, so it's not going to be as big?
I think it's just expected, but it will be a problem because somebody will make it one.
Yeah, he's not a very liked guy, so I mean, people.
Do you think there'd be a time where they wouldn't bring him on the team because of this, or do you think he's just too good?
No, he's too good at match play. He really is too good at match play.
Yeah, this is his format, and he plays really well in it, so I think it was a no-brainer to pick him.
The only cut he made in a major was at the Masters, if I'm not wrong. But his Ryder Cup record is 5-2-1. He's never lost a singles match. He's never lost a 4-ball match, and is 2-2 in foursomes. So
well, he doesn't have to wear a hat if he plays that well. I think I'll allow that. And then the other question I have, so Keegan, and then the last guy on this list was Sam Burns, is the last captain.
Great putter.
So
great putter.
If you watch Full Swing, one of the main storylines was Keegan Bradley does not make the Ryder Cup USA team, and he's all devastated. And then this last season it comes out, and he makes the President's Cup thing, and he plays pretty well. And then this
the winning
year,
point, like he clinched it.
He won it. Yeah, he won it.
Yeah. So this year, like, all right, cool. Let's see if this guy can the Ryder Cup, and they make him a captain, where he gets to pick. So as a person who does not know things, can you pick yourself? And would that look bad? And was he playing good enough to be picked? Like, why is he not on the team?
So you can pick yourself, but the only time that has ever happened is when Arnold Palmer was a player captain. I do think Keegan Bradley deserves to be on this team. I think the only reason he's not on this team is because he is the captain. If any other person in this world was captain of the Ryder Cup, they would be dumb not to pick Keegan Bradley. He is one of the top players in the United States and the world. His world ranking is higher than some of the players that he did pick. But it is a lot of work of being a captain, and then to have to think about playing, that is a tough situation. So I can understand it, but Bethpage Black is like his backyard. He went to St. John's. He would play out there, like sneak onto the course on Mondays when it was closed with some teammates. And I feel like he does have a lot of knowledge of the course, but him not playing is such a shame. I was so mad to hear that he wasn't going to pick himself, but I completely understand it. I just think that he was playing so well. He had that win when he beat out Tommy Fleetwood that one time. His game has been trending the past since he's been named a captain, because a lot of people gave him a lot of hate for even being nominated. They're like, what is the U.S. doing? That's not they're putting the team in the wrong direction. But then his game started going very, very, very well, and he started getting in contention a lot more. Won the BMW last season. So that's my only thing, is that I wish that he was playing, but I do understand why he's not. Will that give Europe a slight advantage? Probably. But how the U.S. combats that based on pairings will be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so now we looked at both rosters. Keegan Bradley not playing, which I think is just sad as a casual full swing viewer. You're like, I just want this guy to play. But it is an honor to be named the captain.
Yeah.
So do we think this American team, and maybe compare it for me, just compare to last time they played, how does this America's team like load up? Do they have a good chance to beat Europe, or is that Europe depth really hard to combat, especially like in a team format?
I think that the reason that Europe's depth is really important is because they only have one rookie, and I know we'll touch on that later. But the U.S. has a lot of players with not as much experience. And I think that based on just how like the Open was, obviously like Scotty clawed back and won it and dominated there. The U.S. Open was pretty much everybody's game, and Scotty took the PGA, and the Masters was how it was. I think that while the U.S. has a lot of strong players, what we saw a couple years ago when the U.S. was supposed to be equally as stacked on paper was that they fell very short, shockingly. Like, Scotty did not play well. And there was like this one picture where he's on the golf cart sitting next to his wife, like head in his hands, like crying. Like it was very weird. It was very weird to watch. No one expected that. But then you see US dominate the international teams, like win every single point, but then have it done to them the next day where the internationals win every single point. So I think I think Europe does have the edge, but I think when you have players like JJ Spawn and Ben Griffin, even though they are younger and new, they're riding so much current momentum, whereas Europe has depth, but their players didn't all have the great season leading up into this Ryder Cup that they did 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's a flip of a coin then in that instance.
Yeah,
so
I think
last time they played... Oh, you go, Adam.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was going to compare this to some other sports. I think when you look at Europe, they're a team, a bunch of experience. Maybe not playing their best, but it's like when you get them into the Ryder Cup, they know how to play this event. They know how to do it. America, they've got some players that have played extremely well this year, but at the same time, you never know once they get into the situation. Kind of like, Chris, when we talk about like basketball and football, a young team that's never been to the playoffs, how are they going to handle it when they get there? That's kind of some of the American players, how are they going to handle it when they get to Bethpage Black and see what they can do. So I think off Amanda's point there, I think it's a phenomenal way of looking at it of Europe's gone with experience and guys they know that can win in this event. America's gone, let's go with who's playing well and see how that works. Mm-hmm.
And we keep mentioning Bethpage Black. So that's the golf course this year. It's in the United States, giving them a home field advantage. How important is that this year? And also, what do we have to know about this course especially?
I think it's huge. It's one of the hardest courses. It's also, you could play as the public can play it. I've seen things all around social media about people literally camping out in cars, just trying to get a tee time to play it. I think it's a really, really cool venue. I don't know the ins and outs of the course. I'm not gonna lie. But I think it having the way that the European crowd showed up in Europe and all blue and yellow, it's going to be completely different and all red, white, and blue. those, like, Rory is going to get heckled by that crowd, and I know, like, Bryson's going to do the same thing to him, and it's going to be so positively USA. And the other thing that I love about it is that the Northeast doesn't get a lot of tournaments. Like, they had, like, the event, the Truist at Philly Cricket Club, and they have the Travelers, but that's about it. There's not much else up there other than, like, if a major rotates in the area, like Oakmont pretty much close by. But other than that, it's all south, it's all California, like warm places. So I think that having it in, like, this location, and Keegan also being a New England guy, St. John's guy, I think it's just going to bring a lot of prideful people out there that is just going to make it such an electric environment. Like, I really wish I was going, because it's going to be one of the coolest things we're going to see in golf, like, for a very long time.
Yeah, and
Well,
I
a few
think
years ago,
oh
I
my
went to.
gosh. You keep
Adam,
talking
my God,
over
I'm
me, Chris. I
talking.
got a lot of good
Well,
things to
listen,
say.
you're
I
all
got a
blurry in
lot.
my screen. I can't tell, but I went to the Oak Hill PGA Championship a few years ago, and it was really cool seeing golf up here. However, the day that I went, it did not stop raining. So
Well,
the energy
yeah.
was taken a little bit out of the crowd, to the point where I was
Let's
so
get
cold
the
I fell
weather.
asleep. I was huddled up in a poncho on the 18th green, and I just kind of dozed off. But I think it's very cool it's up here. I did not know that even that was where this was until we started prepping for this podcast. So very exciting. The Travelers is near me, and I feel like a lot of people go to that. But Adam, I'll let you talk. I know you're so antsy over there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I think because I've been listening to people talk about the course and who it plays to, who it doesn't play to, and I think I've heard that it's a really good course for long ball hitters, which of course brings right into Bryson DeChambeau. And they said that they were talking about, like, how do you pick the group? And they said if Keegan Bradley's smart, he's putting Bryson DeChambeau in the first group, and his caddy's walking out and say, well, this distance to the front of the green, this distance to the pin, and they're going right at it. Just send the message right away. We're here to play, and we're going straight for the hole. We're not messing around. We'll take a risk on the first hole and see what happens of the tournament. But I think it's kind of one of those messages. It plays well to those long ball hitters. That's why Bryson, like, everyone was like, man, if he doesn't get it, will he be a captain? Like, they're like, he was one of the obvious guys everyone kind of knew was going to be there just because of the way he plays and how that course is going to play to him. So I think that's going to be a big advantage as well. And you mentioned, is it important that it's played here? The U.S. has won 3 of 4 in the United States. And that's a big deal because since the turn of the millennium, they've only won 3 out of the 11. Like, Europe's 8-3 in the last 11. But the 3
Europe's
the
also
US
not
has
good on
won.
the road.
Yes, the 3 U.S. have won has been here. So it's kind of a big deal just coming back home because it is the only time in golf you truly get a hostile environment. And I think it might be as big as we'll ever see on the simple fact that we've seen it building up this way. Like, even when, like, Rory misses a putt, you hear USA chants start chanting down on him. Like, it's gonna, like, this is bleeding up. This hasn't even happened yet. So I think the crowd's going to be absolutely juiced, and it's going to make a really tough place for Europe to play.
Yeah, I remember in Pinehurst, I was there on the Sunday when Rory missed that putt, and the immediate reaction was USA chants the whole time at the US Open this year. Same type of thing when one of the European players who was assumed to be on the team now, like, would miss. And I just looked up the weather for Bethpage, New York. It says 75% chance of rain on Friday, but that's, like, overnight, like 2 a.m. But then 77 degrees, 76 on Saturday with some clouds, and 77 in this, like, perfect sun on Sunday. So, I mean, a little rain probably isn't the worst thing. Firm up the course, get, like, prep all the conditions, but I don't know. It'll be fun. They play in the rain all the time. We had the squeegees out at Oakmont on Sunday. So it'll be a battle regardless. But, like, just imagine, like, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, like, that 16th hole just throughout the entire course. That's what it's going to be like, and I'm so excited.
So we mentioned this crowd, and we've seen someone that has a little bit of we've mentioned him, Rory McIlroy. He seems to have a little bit of a short temper sometimes. I remember last Ryder Cup, he was yelling. I forget what hole happened, but there was a whole screaming match
with
what happened.
Bones.
Yeah.
Do we think we get another incident like that, especially with the tempers going high with someone who usually gets into it? And I think that's what makes it fun. Not criticizing. I think those are kind of the fun moments we see the passionate, but do you think that's more likely to happen with more of the USA fan base showing out for a guy like Rory?
I do, and if Keegan Bradley's smart, he'll put Bryson right there. There was a whole drama about the Masters, and, like, Bryson tried talking to him, Rory didn't respond, but Rory was like, that was going to be the plan regardless of who I played with, which I totally understand. You're trying to complete the career Grand Slam at Augusta National. There's no time for chit-chat. But, like, he will go, like, they will go at it. And I think that if you set Rory off, there's no telling what he will do. And I don't even think it necessarily has to come with who he's playing against. It'll come from the crowd regardless. They'll bring up the Masters, they'll bring up Pinehurst, they'll bring up all those other close calls where he messed up, like the Open in 2022, stuff like that. And I think there will be something. I don't know if we'll get maybe one of the behind the scenes moments, unless it does come from a player like we saw with Bones in 2023. But I think his fuse is kind of short, and I don't know.
Well, I personally love it in golf. It's kind of like the most realistic version to me of Happy Gilmore, seeing like Happy Gilmore lose his temper on the golf green, just seeing Rory yell at guys. I'm all for it, honestly. And Adam, I have a question for you now. You know, you're saying the course favors the long drivers. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Colin Morikawa is known for not being that, long of a hitter. Guys like that, do you try to pair them with someone like a Bryson who could hit it long to kind of balance that out? Is that the strategy they most likely go for?
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. You try to pair guys up that mesh really well, especially, the first day doesn't really matter that much because it's better ball, as she said. So, I mean, it's one of those where you're both going to play out the hole and you just want, someone that's really consistent at getting pars, maybe not a birdie machine. You pair them up with someone who's a birdie machine that's going to be able to go out and get a lot of birdies because you have that par to fall back on if you get yourself into some trouble. So I think that's something you try to look at. But when you look at the alternate shot, you want a long driver, and then Colin Morikawa who can get you real close and then putt it in. You want to pair someone that gets you well with a guy like Sam Burns, who's one of the best putters on tour. You want him to be in that group to be able to knock him in if you need a long putt, he's able to do that. So I think it's kind of meshing games really well. And that's why I think a lot of people, like, maybe you're trying to say, why did Keegan not play? It's that, because he wants to be able to look at all the stats and say, well, he's going to play well with him, he's going to play well with him. And he's able to really look at that as if it's now he has to look at, now who am I going to play with might be another tough thing to look at as well. So I think that's one of the reasons he didn't play, and it's going to be huge to look at that and kind of trying to pair those guys together.
And when you talk about Bryson as strong of a hitter he is off the tee, what I've noticed, especially in the majors this year, is his lack of distance control coming into greens. That's what really dismantled him in Saturday and Sunday at the Masters. At Oakmont, it didn't look great. Granted, that course is one of the toughest in the world. But that would be the thing that worries me the most. So in a foursome situation, I think him with Colin would be great. Colin, I believe, leads the PGA Tour in strokes gained on approach. So if you can knock it close, it gives anyone a look and a chance to put up a number and win a hole. So that would be my only concern with Bryson. But I do think, like, when he won the U.S. Open the first time, like, that's how he won. He just pounded the ball and then got it in. So as long as he's dialed things up a little bit, I mean, we see the trick shot all over the internet. Looks a little accurate, hitting over a whole flight of stairs onto a different floor of their house. So just translate that onto the course and USA should get some points. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and now we have matchups, and I don't know how much this is still a factor. So, Amanda, years ago, when we first started our 72 crew pod at Penn State, back when I was a young lad, we were talking this whole live PGA thing. Is there any more animosity between the two sides, or is that pretty much faded out, a few years past?
I think over time it's definitely dissipated. I think that there's still a desire for unity, but because of how long it's taking, and probably because people didn't realize it would take this long, it's not necessarily a conversation. Like, Bryson is the only one on live for the US. Yeah. But like on the Europeans, they have Tyrrell Hatton, who automatically qualified, and then John Rahm, who was a captain's pick. So I don't think there's necessarily animosity there. I think at the majors, they all like getting me back together. But I mean, like, you do have, they're wearing their own logos. Bryson wearing the Crushers logo, John Rahm wearing, I forget what team he's on, but that logo, Hatton, the same thing. So I think that kind of goes away in an event like this, only because it's not necessarily an individual thing anymore, or even a live team thing anymore. It's USA and Europe. And I think that's what also makes this event just so much better and why it's starred on so many people's calendars.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's cool too is with a smaller field, you kind of get to see the stars really from each side. And with that comes really cool matchups and team up options. So who do we think? I know the big guys. That's why this event's great for me, because it's like, oh, cool. I know most of these players.
Yeah.
Do you think we get to see a Scotty versus Rory or Bryson versus Rory? What do we think we do there, and how fun is it to see those matchups? And what would be like the most interesting matchup?
I think that if you have like a foursome with Scotty and Bryson with Rory and Rom, that would be really, really cool. I think that might be one of my favorite ones. I think that would be one that would get a ton of huge ratings. I think those are some of the biggest personalities on both teams, talent-wise, and just like historically in ways that they've traded majors back and forth on who wins what. That's what I think. So I think there's a chance that you could see Scotty and Bryson up against Rory. I think even if they don't play necessarily in the same one, just how the matches fall, I think they would go up against each other at some point. And that would be really cool to see.
Yep,
Adam,
I
what are your
agree.
thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think like I kind of want to see Scotty and Rom play because I believe that's who beat Scotty in 2023, isn't it? What didn't he play John
It
Rom or
was
my
it
mistaken?
was the 9-7 win was Ludwig and Victor against Scotty and Brooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Scotty and John Rahm have always kind of been, an interesting matchup when they'd be up against each other. I really want to see Bryson play Rory just because of all the little things that could go in.
Same.
Bryson will definitely poke the bear and see what happens because Rory rides hot, which is sometimes really good and sometimes not. So I think, that would be the game plan would be, hey, we're going to get him fired up and we'll see if it's Rory that, from the Masters on Saturday that goes nuts or if it's going to be the back nine where you're going to see that roller coaster and Bryson be able to take advantage.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting matchups. I think even, and like we said, it's going to be the depth and it's going to be how some of the rookies that we have on our team, you look at Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, JJ Spawn, and Cam Young as the rookies for the Ryder Cup for the U.S. How do they match up against guys like if they're playing a Matt Fitzpatrick or a Ludwig Oberg or a Victor Hovland? Like, how do they match up in those matches? And can maybe the rookies step up in a big way? And that's what, of course, Keegan Bradley, when he picked the team, he's hoping that they're going to be able to do that and help them get across the finish line and get those wins that maybe Europe's penciling in as, well, we know they can win these matches and the U.S. being able to steal those.
Yeah, and Adam, you mentioned it. So a lot of rookies, you said. So we have for the United States, Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, JJ Spawn, Cameron Young, all rookies. We just talked about how Europe last time had them. If you were to pick some of those guys who are really going to pop and try to, put their name at the top of this level in the Ryder Cup, who do you think would be the best bet to kind of break out on this stage?
Course-wise, Cameron Young, he's from New York, and he won the New York State Open there. He was the first amateur winner in the championship's history. And he knows the course, like, just probably as much as Keegan Bradley does. And for just, like, a way I think they're going to perform well in match play, Ben Griffin. One of his wins on the PGA Tour this year was the Valspar Championship, which is the only match play event left. He and Andrew Novak won. That was his first PGA Tour win. And then he ended up winning an individual title, had 10 top 10s, and that was second only to Scotty Scheffler this season. So he's been playing really well. A few years ago, he wasn't even playing golf. I think he was like selling insurance or something like that. But he came back to the game. He has just a really neat swagger to him with those sunglasses. It's for a vision reason. But I think that even though he's young and doesn't have experience, I would like to see him play with Justin Thomas. That is my thing. Justin Thomas is the most experienced person because this is his fourth Ryder Cup for Team USA. And I think that when you have that experience of just being in those situations with a player like Ben Griffin, who's young and has been striking the ball phenomenally, Justin Thomas has turned his game around since 2023 and got a win this year at the RBC Heritage tournament. And so I think that putting those two together will set them both up really well. But I think Ben Griffin can definitely dominate in a singles match. He's just as good as any of these Europeans, even though it's his first time in a Ryder Cup.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Adam, any more thoughts on those rookies?
No, I couldn't agree more. Those were the two I was really looking at. Another guy I think it's either going to be really good or really bad is JJ Spawn. He's just got this kind of... He handles himself a certain way. He carries himself into these. He's extremely confident. So I think sometimes that could work out really, really well. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if he struggles a little bit because just like off pure golf talent, he's not one of those guys you're like, man, he just has such a pure swing and just off talent alone, he can do all these great things. But he's been able to win these events. He's been able to compete in these events. And he always seems to rise to the occasion when he's pushed in some of these events. So I think he's one of those guys that could really step up for the U.S., but he also could struggle at the same time. And he's one of those guys where yeah, Keegan didn't have a choice here. Of course, he qualified, was the number 2 qualifier for the
Mhm.
U.S., but it's one of those where you're kind of rolling the dice and saying, hey, you played really well all year. Now it's time to really show it, and I think he can, but at the same time, it could also be a little bit of struggle. He's my biggest wild card going into this one. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be really fun to watch him.
Yeah, I think it's a confidence thing with JJ. I mean, it's just the belief of being able you can do it. Obviously, like when he lost in the playoff to Rory and hits the ball in the water on 17, that was brutal. But he said, I remember him saying at the US Open that moment kind of was a step in kind of gaining that confidence. And just the way he won at a course like Oakmont and just draining that putt, I think definitely helps. I don't remember how he really fared the rest of the season after that, but you're riding that high and everything. And I think that coming into this, you've won the US Open and you're going to have the entire country on your side regardless. USA always loves when someone from the US wins the US Open, let alone plays for their Ryder Cup team. But yeah, I would agree. I don't know how he's going to do. And that's, I think, what kind of, I guess, makes me nervous from that standpoint, that like he was an auto qualifier. He definitely deserved to be in that position, but I don't know enough about him as a match play person to confidently say he's going to have an upset win or he's going to perform terribly.
Yeah, well, we'll see. At least I actually know who's playing now this year, so thank you for that. And 2 more questions. One, if you win, what's on the line? Is it a cash prize? Is it bragging rights? What's at stake here?
Well, it's not really played for money, although this year there was a lot of talks about starting to pay players, and players were like, we don't really like necessarily are doing it for that. We don't really want it. I think Team USA is getting paid, but a lot of them vowed to either donate the money or put it back into the game of golf in some regard. It's really a pride thing. Winning, like whenever you see the reactions of like a Ryder Cup victory or a President's Cup victory, or for the LPGA, a Solheim Cup victory, it's more of that pride. It's a lot of golf history relies on these team events and major championships. And yes, majors now have some of the biggest purses attached to them. But I think that it's always deeper than the price tag. Obviously, this is their job, but this is kind of like the thing you do for fun with a bunch of friends for bragging rights for 2 years. So it's a big deal. And I think that the money aspect of whether, I don't remember the situation for Team Europe, but whatever these players decide to do with the money, however they just donate whatever they do with it, it's not about that. It's never been about that, which is also why this event kind of just gets rid of that whole thing about like Live and PGA Tour and Live jumping for more money, because this is just a whole pride for country and continent at that point.
Well, that's nice. I think Patrick Cantley might have some disagreements there for him.
Yeah,
It's about
I don't
the
know.
money.
Him in that hat.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna final question here. Who's your prediction to win? Amanda, you go first.
Oh, I haven't really come up with a score prediction. This is the most I've thought about it, probably in depth, really. I think the US wins, but by the slimmest of slim margins. Like, it's going to be like a point difference, I think. It's really going to come down to those Sunday singles matches. And if it's someone like Scotty that wins it, maybe, but I could also see, just looking at their team, I think it could be like a Colin Morikawa situation or Xander. But I think it really comes down to Sunday. I think you don't see it swing too far in either direction on Friday. I think Friday will be pretty even. Saturday, someone might get a slight edge, but it's going to be close.
Adam?
I've gone back and forth on this. I've talked all about, how the depth of Europe and how it's going to be a huge problem for the U.S. But in 1776, we declared our independence. We didn't just declare it for, our country. We declared it for the sport of golf. We declared it to, send a message in the sport of golf that we own golf now. You guys could have invented it over in Scotland. That's cool, but this is our sport now. All right? We've taken control of it. We lead the all-time series. Now, a lot of it was before it was all Europe, and it was just Britain, and I understand that. And I understand that Europe's won 8-3, but I don't care. 3-4 on U.S. soil. Keegan Bradley is going to do everything in his possible power as the captain to make sure sure the U.S. wins this. It means so much to them. I think the guys understand that. They'll feed off that energy from their captain in a way I don't know if they've ever been able to feed off a captain in that way before. Justin Thomas being the veteran on this team, Scotty Scheffler, best player in the world. I think some of the rookies step up in a big way. I think the crowd's going to be a huge difference for the U.S. in this one. So I'm taking the U.S. I think it's going to be very close. I'm leaning with our country here. But like I said, I would not be shocked if Europe wins. They have the board depth and experience. It's going to be a huge thing. But on U.S. soil with the fans and everything going in the U.S.'s pattern, it's a setup for the United States to be able to pull off. I think if it was in Europe, it'd be a huge upset. Here, it's definitely a possibility.
Well, I don't know if I could match that passion, but I will say, considering I am a lukewarm, golf fan, I'm just going to pick the United States because that's where I'm from. So I'm not going to pick against them if I barely know. But I will say, when I look at the team and I see the top guys, I'm like, cool, I know more on the U.S. than I do on Europe. So for that reason alone, we'll go with Team USA. But Amanda, Thank you so much. You were the first ever guest on the Pain and Panic podcast. So congratulations.
Wow.
You are the title. You have that for life.
I do.
Yes,
I'm so honored. Oh my gosh.
I do have one
This is
question for
incredible.
you, Amanda. I do have one question for you. So we're talking golf, but Amanda's also a Penn State football insider for Com Radio. Penn State's got a big one this weekend, Amanda. They got Oregon coming to town for the whiteout.
Yep.
Do they get it done? Do we get a prediction from you here, Amanda? Who wins?
Oh my goodness. I need Penn State to convert on third downs, sustain a drive, score touchdowns rather than field goals. And then Penn State could possibly win. I think that, while they've looked okay against these non-conference opponents, they've never had to play without the lead. And I think Oregon will be leading at some point during this game, which is really going to test that defense, and it's really going to test Drew Aller and the offense. So I don't know how that's going to look, but I did watch a little bit of just the throws from Moore, Oregon's quarterback, and he looked really good. Granted, it was Oregon State, so this will be a huge matchup. Having Oregon right off the bat to start conference play in a whiteout, no less, with game day coming. This place is already crazy, and it's Monday. It's going to be an interesting one. I literally couldn't even tell you a score prediction right now because I genuinely have no idea. But it'll be a time for sure.
Yeah, I'll say mine for Friday.
Very worried.
I'll save my prediction for Friday, but no, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be electric.
I didn't mean to make you worried.
Yeah, come on.
It'll be fun.
I'll be stressed out then until Saturday because it's the only team I really care about.
Hey, you can watch if you have NBC on all day. This is the other thing. They have the best weekend. You have the Ryder Cup Friday, Ryder Cup Saturday, and then the whiteout Saturday night, all on NBC. Perfect
and then Ryder
lineup.
Cup Sunday right into Micah's return to Dallas.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, selfishly, I would have liked the Ryder Cup to be this past weekend because Penn State was on a bye and I didn't have to work. But there will be a lot of multitasking going on, so it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you, Amanda. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Yes, thank you guys.
We're going to put more shorts and things on social media about this because this was a lot of fun. Thank you for teaching me about the game of golf because I've forgotten most of it. Adam, anything from you?
No. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Give a follow on TikTok. Amanda does a lot of great stuff. So Amanda, is there any place that people should go follow you? To cover whether it's Penn State, whether it's golf, whatever Amanda's doing. She does a lot of great stuff during her time at Penn State.
Yeah, thanks. I mainly post all of my stories onto Twitter. It's AmandaV_3 if you wanted to follow that. But yeah, I've been writing for Com Radio and Penn State on SI this season. So a lot of stuff every week. And yeah, no, it's all been fun.
Yeah, and Amanda's socials will all be in the description. It'll all be in the description as well.
Yes. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.